Welcome back to my channel. My name is Karina and I typically make videos about speech and language pathology. I am an SLPA and I really just share my experience here on YouTube, and here and there I will also share my personal life being a mom to my baby boy Rio. Now today I will be sharing with you guys the difference that I've seen in early intervention versus the school setting. Now, since I am going to be sharing with you guys the differences, the pros, the cons, everything about both settings, I think I should tell you all a little bit about myself and how I worked or how I got into those settings, right? I was 21 when I graduated from UT Austin and I moved to Dallas to work for early intervention. I really enjoyed that job, but I did not complete a full year there. I lasted about 9 months, and then after that I did get a job in the school setting and I have been there ever since. I'm about to be completing my 3rd year in the school setting. So I'm gonna start with the application process because that's what I find a lot of people have questions around. For early intervention, believe it or not, it was a lot harder. The application process, I remember, did include a letter of recommendation. They were requiring, to answer some short questions about your experience and really turn in your resume. I mean, it was a whole packet of stuff I had to fill out and turn in. Now, they did require for me to turn it in person. It wasn't an online thing. It wasn't a call type of thing. I applied online through LinkedIn, I believe, and then I went in person to get the application. I filled it out, we talked about it, turned it in, and then I heard back by the end of the week. Since I was straight out of college from my first job, I was kind of used to this application process being very long. I had gotten this season of applying for graduate school, so I was used to all these steps to be completed for an application. So for a job, as my very first job, I didn't find it weird to have to fill out all of that information or need a letter of recommendation. I just thought, oh, okay, this is how the professional setting works. Now, when it came down to applying for the school, I was very surprised how easy it was, at least compared to my first job. This for the school was, I filled out an application online, kind of giving my history, my experience, of course submitting my resume and like a background check sort of thing. And then once I completed that, I kind of had to wait for a call from someone to screen my application. And then after that call was finished, I was supposed to wait for someone else in the speech department to be calling me for an interview if they were going to be interviewing. So it was kind of a waiting game in that sense. But then when I did receive that call, I automatically thought, I got the job. It went really, really well. And I didn't have to go in person for that one. That was kind of surprising. I thought they would require me to go in person, to see me, to meet me, see my energy and stuff. And they didn't. They kind of just went based off my phone call. I think it's also important to say that interview over the phone was very much situational based. They would ask questions. If this happened, what would you do? Or give me a time you blank. Have you worked with blank? It was very back and forth. They just wanted, I guess to check off boxes. I don't know. And then, of course, they reviewed my resume and stuff. They got back to me. And then once I got the job, that was it. So I thought that was fairly easy compared to my first job, again, where I was very nervous to go in person and I had to dress a certain way, I had to act a certain way. And for my second job, it was literally all over the phone. So, I did have to be more charismatic over the phone, I guess, because you're trying to present your energy in a way that you wouldn't be in person for my first job, for the early intervention job. But they both have their pros and cons. That was the application process, at least for me. Another important thing I want to talk about are the skills needed for both. Obviously, in the state of Texas, you need a degree to get an SLP-Assistant license. So in the state of Texas, at least in Dallas, right, they're verifying that you have that license for the early intervention and for the school setting. You do have to have your physical license. Now, the skills I do say are different because when it came to early intervention, for the year or so that I was there, I found that I had to know a little bit more about the child as a whole. Early intervention, if you do not know, is from birth to 3 years old. So this deals a lot with how the child was born. You have to kind of know their background, if they had any complications when they were born, And stuff that I felt at the time was not really relevant to speech, I all of a sudden had to know. But I'm not complaining because that information really helped me overall, as a professional, as an SLP assistant. I've learned so much. So in early intervention, I want to say the skills that you need are just general knowledge on the overall health of the child that you're working with. Although you're only applying your speech skills and what you have learned, to play with them, to give this therapy session for 30 minutes or an hour or whatever it is, you're still applying your speech skills in that way, but you really need to have a basic knowledge on, occupational therapy, physical therapy. If they're receiving these services, I think it's really important to keep that in the back of your mind. And in the school setting, that's not so much my case. For those types of skills, I've noticed I need a lot more sort of reading teacher, English teacher skills, because I'm working a lot with grammatical sentences. I'm working a lot with, articulation, which is speech related, right? But grammar is a part of that as well. We need to be able to say, you don't say he are going to the store. That's incorrect. You're going to say he is going to the store. So I find that I'm using a lot of whiteboards in the school setting and really giving concrete examples. I'm making blanks for sentences. I'm showing the difference between is and are, he and she, they, pronouns like that. So in that way, yes, you're still applying your speech skills to both for articulation, early intervention. You're still playing with babies and interacting with the families, but the skills that you really need to get out of you is very different. Next thing is schedule. Okay, that's what everybody wants to know. You want a flexible schedule most of the time, especially if you have kids, if you're going to school, if you have a side hustle, whatever it is, you want a flexible schedule ideally, right? So for early intervention, I would say typically it's like a 9 to 5 type of thing. But I say that generally because you're almost home health, really. You're working these late hours, or I guess between 5 and 6, right? Because you're accommodating to families. You're working on their schedule. You're calling families to see, hey, does this time work for you? If they're not available until 5 and you have to make this visit, you're gonna make it work. So although it's not exactly home health, early intervention, you find that a lot of the times the kids, because they're from birth to 3 years old, they're at home with somebody, whether that's grandma, their mom, uncle, aunt. Someone's typically home with the baby, but it also, you could be going to daycares. These settings, just vary. It could be at a daycare, it could be at a cousin's house, and if they give you the right to go in and do this session, then you're able to do it. So the schedule, I want to say, is typically, in that time frame, 9 to 5. And then for the school, I have found it's a lot more flexible because you're there kind of as a speech only teacher or speech therapist. You are there, yes, in the time block of school, which might be 7 a.m. Or 8 a.m. depending on your school, but you're leaving, like at 4 p.m. Again, this varies because if there's kids that are testing and for a whole week they're going to be start testing, you're not always going to be able to see every single kid that day. They're testing literally all day, so you might leave earlier. But I think school setting, I could say confidently it's a lot earlier. I want to say 7 to 4, and then early intervention would be 9 to 5 ish. That's the time that you're going to go with those two. Now that leads into my next one, which is like the not just schedule, but the flexibility of both. I do think is very, very different. For early intervention, I remember being so hyped because I, yes, made my own schedule, even though I would fall into this time restriction of, you have to clock in at 8 or you have to be done by 5 o'clock. You're making your own schedule in both settings. For early intervention, because you are working, from your car, kind of, you're traveling to these houses and you're calling families and you're seeing, oh, if so-and-so canceled, I have to fit in somebody else. For early intervention, it's very flexible. You are making your own schedule. I remember I loved that about early intervention. And being in my car, you get to pick your lunch spot. There's a lot of pros in that. The school is also very much like that. You get to be flexible as in the schedule that you're making. Yes, you're given student 1 has PE at this time and then they have lunch at this time. So you're able to work with that. You're able to see, okay, can I pull him out of reading? Can I pull him out of specials? Can I pull him out at the end of the day? Whatever works for you. As long as you're seeing, your 30 kids, for example, then that's going to be what works for you. You have a lot of flexibility in both settings, which I really, really like. Last thing I do quickly want to touch on is the environment. I want to say the early intervention environment is a lot more family oriented, a lot more family based, because of course you're going into these families' homes. You're teaching these families what they can do at home to apply these speech skills, you know. And then for school, like I mentioned earlier, it's very much a curriculum based environment, I want to say, because you're teaching more to the curriculum that they're learning in school, that they're learning, you know, in 4th grade versus 2nd grade, whatever it is. But that's very different. I hope you all did learn something here. I really, really like both jobs. I want to say I prefer the school setting, but because that's me personally, now I'm a mom and I want that extra time with my son. Early intervention did teach me a lot though. I'm forever grateful for that job because that helped me so much for working with students at the school. So if you did like this video, please make sure to give it a like and subscribe to my channel, as it'll mean so much to me. And I will catch you guys in my next video. Bye.